Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Hammer. Today is Friday, February 13th. I should give you all my legal name today since it's Friday, February 13th, and I am Jason. So we saw some scary stuff yesterday with rates. However, nothing scary with the CPI data this morning. Good stuff. So we're going to get into that. We talk about that. We'll go a little bit deeper and see if we can figure out anything that affected rates yesterday, why they improved. There were over 30-something reprices better, maybe even more through the day. A lot of got to absolutely see some bigger moves to see that happen. So we did see that. That was pretty good and some pretty good stuff. So remember, you can join me live each and every weekday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. If you're here this morning, say good morning. Let me know. Yeah, Doug is here this morning. You're not on your computer.
Morning.
Yeah, so you're not. You have to say it in the chat,
It's
or else
more fun this way. It's live.
I can't acknowledge you if you're not in the chat.
But it's live.
I was like, good morning, Doug.
Good morning.
So we're off to Snowmobile if there's any snow left after it gets warm today in Wisconsin. Anybody that has any pull with the weather station, get us some cold weather, get us some snow. But anyway, great to have all you here. If you are on the replay, don't forget, do me a favor, give me hashtag replay in the comments. Let me know that you were here, and Facebook and YouTube and all that good stuff. Good morning, Bill Stevens and Charlie Medina, Mike Brown. Great to have you here as well. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and keep going on here. And because we're going to be boarding in a minute, let's start off with a quick recap of what happened yesterday and take a look at the technicals. Let me share the screen and we'll get into the good stuff here. So, all right. So taking a look, a quick recap of what happened yesterday. Let's zoom in here, bring this up here for you. There you go. So what we're looking at for yesterday is everything on this side of the dotted line. You could see that pricing came out right here around 10 a.m. And at that point, it was basically right around 100.10, 100.9. And we improved quite a bit through the day, steadily through the day. And once again, there were a lot of reprices better as we then came up to about 125. So yesterday, all in all, take a look here at the Japanese candlestick chart. We're looking right here. We're looking at this candlestick right here, this green one. That came after a bad day the day before with the jobs data on Wednesday. And remember, I told you that even if this jobs data did hurt us, it wasn't going to last long, and that's where we're at today. However, nobody expected these improvements we saw yesterday. There was really no reason to point to see them. There wasn't anything in economic data that really created it. It wasn't anything in the headlines, no fundamentals, but we did see quite the improvement. We went from 99.97 up to 100.25. So we were up about 30 basis points on the day, building on that quite nicely now. Let me go ahead and let's change screens. Here you go. And we'll get on to where we are today here. So looking at where we're at today, you can see the 10-year Treasury, 4.07, 4.06, 4.07, well below that 4.20 mark. And look at, again, we want to see yields go down. Down is good when we're looking at the 10-year Treasury yield. Look right here. Look at how dramatic we've seen. We were all the way up here at a kind of a high point, and this was back on February 2nd, February 3rd. That was like our high point. And in just 10 days, look at how much this has dropped. We've seen these 10-year yields drop. They were up as high as 4.27. Now we're at 4.07. We've seen a 20 basis point drop in the 10-year yield. That's a big deal. Now, one thing that kind of I'll point out is that in Bloomberg, it talked about how the inflation dropped. Core inflation falls to the slowest since 2021. So it's really no argument about the tariffs anymore. If they did affect, and now they've worked through the system, is kind of the expectation and belief on this. If we look at the actual numbers and the way they came through, the headline CPI rose 0.2% on a monthly basis, less than economists had forecast. So they were expecting 0.3. A 1.5% drop in energy costs was behind the slowdown in the headline inflation to the weakest monthly pace since last July. Annual inflation came in at 2.4. Remember, the 2% that the Fed is looking at is the PCE, not the CPI. But even still, coming in at 2.4% is key. And for that headline, came at 2.5% for the core. That marked the smallest year-on-year rise in core prices since the cost of living surge began in spring of 2021, since the pandemic. So economists noted these readings are consistent with the Fed's 2% inflation target, though the target relies on a separate index, the PCE, which lately has been running faster. Now, when we see these improvements, arguably that should go ahead and, like this headline says, it should be keeping Fed rate cuts alive, or the expectation or hopes of Fed rate cuts, right? However, when I look at Fed futures using CME FedWatch, really not seeing a change, that big of a change. Still a 90% expectation that rates will remain the same at the next meeting in March. But what this sets us up for is, where will we see this? Again, this is March 18th. It's over a month from now. What happens when we get the March data, the first week of March, the jobs data, when we get the next inflation report, which comes out on March 11th right here, right? So for the February inflation, we really could see a lot of movement on this that could improve rates over the next couple of weeks. So for today, I'm still in a stance where I would go ahead and consider locking anything closing near term, just because the gains that we've seen have felt pretty tenuous. It's hard to kind of put a finger on why we've seen as much improvement as we have yesterday, why bonds improved, why the 10-year yield is so low. And we're going into a holiday weekend. Remember, Monday markets are closed for President's Day. That's stocks and bonds going to be closed for President's Day. So as we head into Monday, do you really want to be floating those loans closing? Yeah, I'd consider locking. It's a conservative call. Now, anyone willing to gamble, though, next week we could see rates continue to improve. It's not likely that rates will fall much, but we're seeing very small incremental movements down in rates, as you would see on rate sheets. Let me bring up that screen one more time, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Looking at Mortgage News Daily as a reference point, we were up to 6.20, and then now we're back down to 6.10. This morning, even a little bit better, maybe call it 6.08. Not the lowest that we were at, but the lowest that we've seen in a month, right? So you look at where we were about a month ago, and now we're back in that. And that's kind of the wave that we see, right? That's what we see. And again, we could see rates continue to improve if we see more improvement happen over here with the 10-year Treasury yield. Is it likely to drop below 4? No. But if something happens and does drive it below 4, that'll be a big deal. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Don't think that's going to happen, though. So anyway, that's it for me, my friends. I'm going to go back to the screen where I can read your comments. And is Badita on there?
I don't know. You said he was earlier.
Oh, did I say it was earlier? Was he one of the first ones on? Hey, Badita, Doug says you still owe him a phone call. So he says now that you introduced him to me, he doesn't care about you anymore.
Yeah, he says I don't care.
Yeah. So anyway, y'all, here we are at the aeroport. If you missed any part of the live today, go ahead and grab that. By the way, I don't use High Level, but I do have their swag because they're sponsors at a few of the different things that I've been at, and I like this very thin, comfy sweatshirt that they have. So I got to get some of these with my own logo on them is what I think I have to do. I'm looking at your comments. How much to check your snowmobile? Yeah. I was going to say, it took me a minute to figure out what he meant on that. Yeah, we rent them. Let's see, live and a tad late. Good to see you, Mahan. Giddy up, Mr. Randy Teagle. All right, my friends. Well, anyway, that's it. Again, there won't be a live on Monday, but I will see you guys on Tuesday when I'm flying home. I think I can work it in. If something happens and you don't see me Tuesday, I don't remember what time my flight is. It's early. But I'll be flying home on Tuesday, so should see you then. Otherwise, thanks again, y'all. Appreciate you joining me, and I hope you found today helpful. Have a great day, my friends. Bye-bye.